today's class is going to be a little bit more technical, a little bit more, not technical, mystical. Mystical is a better word. Okay. Okay. So first, a quick recap on what we spoke about last week. In last week's class, we spoke about the godly soul. We introduced the second soul that we all have, which is this godly soul, which is not just godly in nature. It actually is literally, we said, literally a piece of God. Right? Literally a piece of God. That is what we have as our second soul, our godly soul. Now that we know we have this godly soul, we're going to try to understand it a little bit better, try to get into a deeper understanding of what the soul is all about and how we can work with the soul, how we can do godly missions with our godly soul. And that is our goal to cover today. So as we just said, this godly soul is literally a piece of God, right? If it's literally a piece of God, then if you want to understand the godly soul, well, let's try to understand God, right? If you want to know what this piece is, look at what the piece comes from. So to literally understand God is not possible. We're not able to understand God. We can't. God is not divisible. God is not something that we can break down and try to understand how he works. It's something that's beyond our comprehension to understand godliness. So instead of trying to go down that path, which is not going to be successful trying to understand God, we're going to instead try to understand how God operates. In that God is infinite. God is the ultimate infinity. Everything else in this world, the entire creations, are all finite. Right? We all are limited. God is unlimited. Unlimited, infinite, cannot relate with the finite. In that God is too removed, it's the two don't connect. You're going to try to take a MacBook and try to have a conversation with a Etch-a-Sketch. There's no connection. They can't relate to each other. The Etch-a-Sketch is nothing. It's not, the MacBook can't tell him anything because he can't hear anything. There's no connection between the two. So in order to have a connection, there has to be an intermediary. There has to be somebody in between, someone who can relate the information from one to the other in order to create the relationship. So using our MacBook and Etch-a-Sketch example, the computer can give ideas to the person who's looking at the computer, and the person can operate the Etch-a-Sketch. So there's something in between that is in between the two, so to speak. I don't know if a person is in between a MacBook and an Etch-a-Sketch, but in our example, we'll put him in between over there, in that he's someone who can bring the two together to have a conversation, to relate one to the other. So in order for God to relate with the world, he created something called the Sfirot. Sfirot literally means the shine. The what? Shine. A shine. Sapphire is, kind of, a shine, something that's shiny. Glowing. Okay. Yeah. So the Sfirot are the bridge. It's more the bridge. It's the means by which the divine energy is able to flow down to the world and down to the creations. Okay? It's the means by which God passes on his connection to the world. And the example that's given is kind of like if you have a light shining onto a prism. So the prism, you have one light that shines on the prism, and the light divides into many different parts. It kind of divides into the purple, the green, the red, the orange. It divides up into many different parts. And so we have the same thing with the Sfirot. You have one godly divine energy. That godly divine energy divides up into 10 different modalities, 10 different paths through this prism, through the Sfirot. And that is why we have the 10 Sfirot, which are the 10 paths of godly energy that is coming down to us in 10 different ways. Make sense so far? Yeah. Okay. So here is a map of those 10 energies, the 10 Sfirot, and we'll do a quick overview of them. Somebody want to take a pass? Here. Okay, so we have the 10 sfirot. The first one is Chachma. Chachma is wisdom, insight, conception, self-transcendence. Chachma is that spark, that idea, that first moment, that flash of lightning, where you get an inspiration, you get an idea. You haven't quite worked out how it works yet, but you have an idea, a basic idea of some new idea that comes to your mind. It's that creative idea that comes in. Next, you have Bina. Bina is understanding, developing, comprehending. So you take that spark, that creative idea that you had, and you start to develop it. You think about it. You contemplate, you think about what this really means, and you start to draw it out. You come up with a length and a breadth, as you started with a dot, and now that dot is turning into a full picture. Talking your language.
That's what I did last week.
Oh, okay.
While I was listening to your lecture,
Yeah,
I was drawing.
that's right.
I thought to do it today.
You can do it today.
Yeah.
And then we have dot. Dot is knowing, consciousness, awareness, bonding. I'm going to talk more about that at the end of the class. But the idea of dot, when we say that dot is knowledge, it's more than just knowledge. It's actually connecting with the idea and becoming one with the idea. Which, as I said, we're gonna focus more on this at the end of the class. Once you have these three, the first three sfirot of Chachma, Bina, and Dat, now we can come to the others. And as the Sefer Yetzirah is it's called the Book of Creation. It is the oldest Kabbalistic work that exists, and perhaps the oldest book literally that exists. We're not quite sure who wrote Sefer Yetzirah, but there's different ideas, different opinions. One of those opinions is that it was written by Avraham Avinu. Another opinion is actually that it was written by Adam. So it's definitely a pretty old book.
What about Moses?
I haven't heard that, but it could be. But what I've heard is, could be.
Yeah.
What I've heard is Abraham, Adam. Or I've heard some later opinions as well. Not everybody holds it's that old. But either way, it is the oldest book that we have on Kabbalah. And it talks about how the world was created. And in Sefer Yetzirah, it describes the 10 Sfirot. And it describes these first three Sfirot of Chachma, Bina, and Dat as the mothers. These three are called the mothers. Why are they the mothers? Because everything else comes from them. They give birth to all the other ideas, as we're going to discuss more as we go further. After we get through the mothers, we get to the seven. The next seven are called the seven doubles in the Sefer Yetzirah.
The seven
doubles.
Doubles.
Okay. Why are they doubles? They're doubles because they have two modes. They can go in a stronger. They could come in a stronger way. They can come in a softer way. They can come in a harsher way, or they can come in a more pleasant way. Each one of these seven sfirot that we're going to talk about now can come in two different paths, and therefore it's called the doubles. To get a little bit Kabbalistic on you, these seven doubles are connected to seven letters of the alphabet. 7 letters of the alphabet, that these 7 letters have 2 ways of reading. There are 7 letters. You can read them in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
What are those 7 letters? No. Aleph is one silent way. Bet. You have bet or vet, right? You have kaf, chaf. So let's do it in order. You have bet. You have gimel, which Ashkenazim don't know this. But if you speak to someone like a Temani, there's a g and a j. A gimel.
All right.
So there's 2 ways of pronouncing the gimel. Basically, all these letters, you see them with a dot or without a dot, and that changes the sound.
Yeah.
So there's the gimel, and then there is the dalet. The Tamanim say more like a thalid, like a th.
All right.
So there's 2 sounds to the dalet. And then we have the chaf, or the kaf, like Esther mentioned. We have the pei, or fei.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This one is the one that I haven't really seen anybody who knows how to make this distinction. It's kind of forgotten with us, is the resh. There's a harsher and a softer resh. I don't really know how to do the two. So I can't tell you how it works, but there are two sounds to the resh. Yeah, I think one is more like a, the softer, and one is a harsher resh, but
Rosh. Rosh and a Ram. Yeah.
and then the final one is the tough and saf. The final letter. So it's beged, kaperet. That's how it's written out. Right? So these 7 letters are called the 7 doubles because there's 2 ways of looking at them. There is a softer way of reading the sound, or there's a harsher way of reading the sound. So similarly, these 7 midot that we're about to mention, these 7 characteristics of God that we're about to mention, also have 2 ways of looking at them. It could be in a softer way or in a harsher way. Now, by the way, when I say softer and harsher, it doesn't mean necessarily good and bad, because as you'll see, within these 7, you have chesed and gvura. So we're not saying a chesed way and a gvura way, but within chesed, you have a stronger sense of chesed and a softer sense of chesed. There's 2 ways of doing each one of these 7 different characteristics that we're going to mention right now. Or in Sfirot, it's called the faculties, the 10 faculties.
I made a very interesting connection.
Okay.
Pearl. What about people that have these letters in their names?
Very interesting.
Wow.
That's an interesting question.
We could be soft and we could be hard. Whatever.
Very
I'm
interesting
sure
question.
there's a connection.
Yeah,
You
interesting.
have
I'm
these
sure. Yeah,
letters
yeah.
in your name.
I mean,
Aha.
yeah. I have the bet.
Pardon?
The bet.
Bet.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah, there.
And the resh as well.
So do I. So do we.
That's right. Okay, so the 7 doubles. Let's go through what the 7 doubles are.
Okay.
The first one is chesed. Chesed means kindness, benevolence, love. It's giving. Chesed is giving. It's generous. It's passing on. Then we have gevura. Gevura is might, awe, reverence. The idea of gevura is that it holds back. Gevura is discipline.
Discipline. Okay.
Discipline. It's holding back. It's not giving. It's holding back. You have to earn it. You have to deserve it. That's the idea of gevura. Right?
Not yet, but okay.
Chesed and gevura. What is this?
I'm just saying they're opposite. Chesed is just free flowing,
Yeah.
and Gevura is more withheld.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Chesed and gevura are kind of, if you see they're kind of separated from the rest of the bottom 5, because chesed and gevura, as we're going to learn more in the class, they are what lead to all the other 5. You start with chesed and gevura before you choose one of the paths where you're going down, which brings you down to the other ones. Okay, finally we have tiferet. We're in the bottom section now. We have tiferet. Tiferet is beauty, harmony, compassion. To speak in your language, if you're painting doing a picture, right? You're making a painting, and you can make a beautiful painting with just red ink, and it's very nice, but it's lacking something. It's all the same color. You can make another painting with just blue ink. It's still lacking something. It's just blue. But when you combine the red and the blue together, you bring different colors together, it comes to life. Yes, there's a certain beauty in the simplistic idea of having one color, but a truly, you want to make something beautiful, you bring in different ideas together. Or to think about it if you want to enjoy a good meal, right? If you want to enjoy an exquisite food, sweet is good, little savory is good, but you want a little bit of a mixture, right? You want to bring in different flavors together to get a full palette, and that makes it more interesting, more exciting, and more beautiful. So that's the idea of tiferet. Tiferet is not pure chesed, it's not pure gvura, it's bringing the 2 together. And this is where we have, for example, tiferet is usually referred to as using your compassion. Another word that I would use is okay, let's stick with compassion because my mind is rather blank. The idea of compassion seems like it's more of a chesed, right? But it's not necessarily, because It's chesed if you need it. It's not chesed for everyone. It's not just pure chesed. I'm giving charity to someone who needs it. I'm not giving out money to everyone who wants money. If you have money, I'm not giving you money because you don't need money. Chesed is anybody who wants money. Here's money. I'm giving it out to whoever wants. That's chesed. Tiferes is like, oh, hold on. Those who need it, get it. Those who don't need it, you don't need it. It belongs to somebody else. That's compassion. Okay, then we have Netzach. Netzach is victory, persistence in the face of challenge. So Netzach is the force to keep going, not to give up, but to keep trying until you get it. Hod, glory, wonderment, gratitude. The idea of Hod is to recognize godliness and to give gratitude to the greatness of godliness. Yesod, we're coming down to the last two now. Yesod is foundation, connection, communication. It's the basics of our relationships with each other, or in this case, our relationship with God. Finally, we have Malchut. Malchut is royalty, dominion. It's about leadership, but also about subservience to the leadership, to God. So these are the 10 sfirot, the 10 faculties by which God is able to communicate and run the world. Right? These 7 doubles are also referred to as the Shivas Yemei HaBinyan, the 7 days of building. Why are there the 7 days of building? Because it's with these 7 characteristics that God created the entire world. Every day was focused on one of them. One day was a day of Chesed, one day was a day of Gvura, until finally we come to Shabbat, which was a day of royalty of Malchut. Separate, splitting the waters, yeah.
But that helps me. Okay, so.
Yeah.
It was light, chesed is.
No, chesed is light.
First day of creation. It's just abundance of giving.
Mhm.
Gvura is, separating the waters, it's boundaries and discipline. There is a beauty, that's when the greenery, all the flowers, grass. Vegetation. Netzach is the sun, moon, and stars.
Okay,
And then 5 is Hod.
yeah,
That's the fish and birds. The animals of the sea and the animals of the sky. So glory.
good. Okay, that's the 5th day.
Yeah, Yesod is the foundation, the reason for creation, people and animals.
Wait, you said salvation,
No, foundation.
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 Foundation. The purpose of creation was for the animals and other people. The purpose was for the people.
Yeah.
Animals came from it.
And that's where we have communication, connection. There's no connection with the world at large, rather with human beings.
Mhm.
Finally, Shabbat is Malchut. Okay, so these are the 10 sfirot, and this is the way God relates with the world. But as we said before, at the start of this class, we are looking at the neshama, at the soul. And we said that the soul is literally a piece of God, which means that just like we have the 10 sfirot, when we talk about godliness, these 10 sfirot also apply to us in our souls. We have the same idea within us, within our souls. And that's what we're going to focus on over here. We have also these 10 faculties, which these are the 10 faculties of the soul. And they also have, if you look on the left side of the page, on the right side of the page, you also have here, it also divides into the same 2 parts. Instead of saying mothers and doubles, we have here, we have the top 3 are the mind, and the other 7 are the emotions. Right, so we have the 3 intellectual ideas, the 3 intellectual capacities, which is where we think and we come up with our ideas and we develop those ideas, and they give birth. They are the parents of the children of the emotions that come from our thought process, which we're going to talk more about. That's really what the focus of the class is all about.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. These different sfirot,
Mhm.
are they located in different parts of the body?
Very good question. It actually
I
even,
like it.
it actually even brings it up in the Tanya. I wasn't going to go there. I felt it's a little bit.
It just came.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there in the class, but it actually does bring it up later in this chapter. Where I wasn't going to focus on it. But let me pull it up quickly here because you asked about it. And he brings some of them. He doesn't mention all of them, but he mentions here that okay. So what we talk about is that the entire world is based on a foundation of four main ingredients, right? And this is something that's spoken about in Kabbalah, but it's also spoken about in other. You have this in other religions and other ideas as well. You have the four main elements that created the entire world, which is fire, water, air, and earth. Eish, ruach, mayim, and afar.
Fire, water, air, and
Earth,
earth.
which is the tangible.
Earth, wind, and fire. Great singing group. It was definitely.
Not familiar.
No, I didn't think so.
As I said, it's a famous concept. It's not unique to this. It's something a lot of people are familiar with. These four yesodot, the four elements. And so it's just gonna look at quickly what he writes over here. So the idea is that there's the things that we do, our emotions are all based on also one of these four elements. They all come from these different elements as well. And the element of fire is in the heart. Our thirst for godliness, and connecting with God, this longing that we have for God, comes from the fire, which is in our hearts. The source of water is in our brains. Which is because chachma, because what water gives life, and chachma gives life. So that's our brains. That's all he mentions. He doesn't go through the full list over here, but he just kind of mentions it here. We can look it up more. It's explained more deeper in Kabbalah and Hasidus and other places, but here it's just kind of a brief mention of that idea.
Thank you.
So that's
Well, I have no idea where the question came from.
yeah. Came from a thirst of understanding and wanting to connect with God.
Okay.
Okay, so as we said, we have in our nefesh, within our soul, we have these 10 faculties, these 10 different ideas within us as well. We have the three intellectual faculties of Chachma, Bina, and Das, which is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That's in the mind department. And then from there, those are the mothers that give birth to all of our emotions, which are all the other ones that we mentioned: Chesed, Gvura, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. Right? Those are the children, the emotions that come from our mind, from our intellectual ideas. And this, by the way, we mentioned this I think we mentioned this in the first chapter in Perek Aleph, that there are 5 different levels to our souls. We have the Chai and Yechida are the higher levels that are not within our bodies. They are indivisible. They are higher up. They kind of hover above us and they give us life. We're not going to focus on those 2, but the other 3 of neshama, nefesh, and ruach, neshama, nefesh, and ruach, those 3 dwell within us. And on those 3 levels, we have the same idea of having the 10 sfirot, these 10 different modalities. They apply to each one of these neshamot, levels of our neshama, the level of nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So it's not 30 because they're all using the paths. So you have your chesed from your neshama. You have your chesed from your nefesh. You have your chesed from your ruach. It's not really a separate idea. It's kind of the path going from the nefesh or the path going from the ruach. Does that make sense?
if I knew what Nefesh Ruach Neshama wasn't practical, then so
We,
abstract.
we spoke about it a little bit
Still
less, and we
abstract,
can
yeah.
focus a little bit more on it. But
It
yeah,
sounds like it's more connected to Hashem and more down into.
it's not really. It's more. It's how we connect with ourselves, how we connect with the world. So it's different. There's different jobs, shall we say, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama.
Draw while you're listening. No, I'm serious.
Kind of doodling. I felt them in high school.
When I talk to people on the phone, I start to doodle, I get messages. Doodle. No, I'm serious.
Okay. But as we start at the beginning of this class, we are talking here about specifically the godly soul, right? We're not talking about our animal soul. We're focusing on the godly soul.
Okay.
Therefore, since we are discussing the godly soul, when we talk about emotions, we are talking about our godly emotions. So when we talk about a love, we're not talking about a love for ice cream. We're talking about a love for God. When we talk about awe, we're not talking about awe of something physical. We're talking about an awe of God. So all of these emotions that we're talking about, it doesn't mean we don't have the emotions also on the other, for the animal soul and for the regular things as well. We definitely do, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the godly soul. Okay? So when we mention here specific emotions, we're talking about emotions in our godly service, our godly emotions. So where do these emotions come from? How do we get an emotion? How do we feel any, let's say, where does a sense of gratitude come from? Where you suddenly feel a sense of gratitude for godliness, and you want to, you're so grateful for everything Hashem gives you. Where does that thought come from? Where does that feeling come from? And so we're going to build it up here. We're going to tell you the exact. Alter Rebbe tells us the exact process. How do we get there? It's a step-by-step process. First thing is you have chachma. Chachma is an idea. You have an idea in your mind. The light bulb, the flash of lightning, right? The word chachma is actually made up of two words. Koach ma. Koach ma means the potential of what? What is it? What is this thing? It's nothing. It's just an idea. It's like you don't even know what the idea is yet. You just know you have an idea. The koach ma is undefined potential. So you think about how great Hashem is. Like, wow, Hashem is so great. Hashem is so fantastic. And then you contemplate. Bina. You start to think about it. And you really put some thought into, wow, Hashem is wow. Look what Hashem does. Look how great Hashem is. Look how strong he is. Look how this is. And you think about it. You put some thought. You don't just let the idea come and go, but you put your mind to it. Now, the chachma and the bina, the idea and the contemplation, they now become the father and mother. They become the parents for this emotion that's going to be coming later on. The emotion is coming from this thought process. So they created it. But you need the bina. You need to contemplate. If you have just the chachma, just the idea, it's when we're talking about we're talking here about parents, so think about it as seed without a womb. If it doesn't go anywhere, if there's nowhere for it to develop, it's not going to turn into a child. You need a place, you need a way for it to develop to become a child. You need that bina, you need that level of understanding of contemplation to reach there to that point. What happens next? Now that you thought about it, now you really like, wow, Hashem really is great. Hashem really is so amazing. And Hashem is so powerful. Hashem can do anything he wants. Hashem is infinite. You think about these ideas, you start to feel in awe, an embarrassment from Hashem. Who am I in front of the great and mighty God? God is everything. God is which turns into almost a fear of God. Now, fear does not mean, it doesn't mean, okay, let's say, what do we say? It's afraid. It doesn't mean that God is spooky and God is going to do something to me and something bad is going to happen. That's not what fear is. Fear is a trepidation of God is just so amazing. And who am I? Who am I to stand before God?
Why? I don't get it.
Which then turns into a love. It's a process.
Okay,
In other words, we have to be awed by God.
I get it.
So we have to see God as like he is
Wow.
a wow, be wowed. That wow makes you feel small next to this giant. You feel so small and tiny compared to godliness.
Not significant.
I know, but I don't accept it yet.
Okay,
Yet.
okay, okay,
I get the awe and whatever.
okay.
Now.
You see how that turns into a love, though,
Yes.
which is the next step of the process.
Yes.
The awe turns to a love. You have a love and a longing for God. You want to connect with God.
Okay.
Once you get through this process, so if you look at the map again, we went through the Chachma and the Bina. We'll get to Das in a moment. We went through the Chachma and the Bina, right? Which are the mother and the father. These are the parents. Chachma is the father, Bina is the mother.
Okay.
They gave birth to
That.
Chesed and Gevura, because we have the love and the awe and the love of godliness, right? Once we get this awe and this love of godliness, now this can automatically bring to the other emotions. The other emotions stem from there. So from there, you start feeling a sense of, we talked about the gratitude before, you start feeling a sense of gratitude to God. Because I have such a awe and love for God, I start to feel gratitude for everything he does for me. That's the idea. So this is kind of how the process, how it works. But we skipped one step. Which step did we skip? Das. We skipped dat. We didn't discuss dat at all, right? So what is dat? What does it mean, dat? What is this understanding that has we called it a connection? What is dat? So dat is different than Chachma and Bina, because dat is intellectual, but it's also not so intellectual. It's the connection between the intellect and action. And we see this in a famous pasuk in the Torah, in Parshat Bereshit. It talks about Adam and Chava, right? And it talks about how Adam and Chava connected, right? What's the words that the Torah uses to describe how they connected? It says in the Torah, Adam yada et Chava.
Okay.
Adam knew Chava. What does it mean he knew her? He connected with her. He became one with her. They got married to each other.
Okay.
And the Torah refers to it as yada, as a knowledge.
All right.
Because knowledge is more than just intellect. Knowledge is a connection. It's taking the idea and making it practical, making it real. And so the Alter Rebbe talks here in the Tanya about we contemplate strongly on the greatness of the infinite God. When you, again, first you had the idea, Chachma. Then you had the Bina. Bina is where you expanded that idea. And you thought about what it means and how, all the ideas behind it. And then Dat is when you contemplate on it. And you meditate on the ideas. Now, if you try to skip this step of Dat, you go straight from the Chachma and the Bina straight down to the emotions. The emotions are not real. The emotions, you'll feel the love, you'll feel the awe, but it's not genuine, and it's not going to stay. It's not going to last. In order for it to stick, in order for it to be real, in order for it to become part of you, you have to have the dot, because the dot is where the idea becomes one with you. You unite with the idea. Otherwise, it's just an illusion. Dot takes an abstract idea and connects it with you. So one way of looking at it is, Chachma is seeing. You see something. You don't quite understand it yet, but you see it. Bina is hearing. You hear all about it, you're starting to understand it. Dat is touching. Now you feel it. That's a whole nother level of understanding, right? You can hear it, you can see it, but that's all external. Dat is when you touch it, it becomes real. It turns real. There's a couple of examples that are given, a couple of interesting parables that are given for this idea. The first one is someone who, let's say, spends a lot of time on thinking about lions. There's a love for lions,
Okay.
right? And he thinks about them and he studies them and reads books and watches movies, and he's fascinated about the lion. And he knows all about lions. You can ask him all kinds of questions about lions. He'll tell you everything about it. He's got the chachma, he's got the bina. But it's not that yet. What happens when the lion escapes from the zoo? And the lion is the lion escaped from the zoo, and the lion is roaming the street outside his house. Now he feels it in his heart. Now he's scared. That's that. Now is when he actually connects with the idea of this mighty lion and how the lion is right here. And now I feel it. That's not just something, an intellectual idea. It's something that actually I feel a real fear or trepidation of this lion. There's a story told of a group of students that were traveling to visit their Rabbi. We're talking about in Russia, in the cold Russian winter. And they didn't have any money for nice coaches. They would walk generally. They'd walk for miles and miles, hundreds of miles sometimes, to reach the city where the Rabbi was, to visit the Rabbi. So, and they had any opportunity to catch a ride, and they would always go for the ride, right? So somebody offered this group, you can ride in the back of my wagon. I'm schlepping. I got a bunch of barrels of whiskey. I'm taking whiskey to this town. You can ride in the back and hitch a ride. And so they're sitting there in the back of the wagon with these big barrels of whiskey, and they're freezing cold. It's Russian winter, and they're feeling that the cold is biting. And they're thinking, right? Look, it's right next to us. There's whiskey, these barrels of whiskey. We drink a little bit of this whiskey, we'll be warm, right? It'll warm us up. We'll feel good.
Yep.
Here we're right next to the whiskey. We're literally right here. We can touch it, but we're cold because we didn't drink the whiskey. We didn't actually take it in. We have the chachma and the bina. We don't have the dat. One more example of that is a thief. A thief who's breaking into a safe. He's breaking into the bank. As he breaks into the bank, he's praying to God that he shouldn't get caught. He's praying that he shouldn't get caught breaking in. Now, 1 second. Hold on. We all know God says do not steal, right? He obviously knows this thief. He believes in God because he's praying to God.
If you're gonna steal, you better have God's help.
But it didn't connect with it. There's no dot. He has the chachma, he has the bina. He knows who God is. He knows that God said this, and he knows that God doesn't want him to steal. He knows, he believes in God, he trusts God, but he doesn't feel it. It's not dot. He didn't connect with it. So this is what dot is. Dot is a power of its own. It's not just an intellectual, like I mentioned before. It's not just chachma and bina, a very smart person. You can be very smart, but you don't have dot. Which, by the way, chachma and bina are also not necessarily together. You have somebody who's very creative, comes up with great ideas, but they can't figure out the details. I'll give you the idea, you come up with how it works. I have the chachma, you come up with the bina. The other person is great at working out the details, but I have no creative ideas. Give me the idea, I'll come up with everything, right? So some people have a stronger chachma, some people have a stronger bina. There's different ways of which generally we say this is, by the way, the male. The male mind is more of a chachma mind, and the female mind is more of a bina mind. The women are better at working out the details of it. In fact, there's a story told of a man came to, I believe it was the Tzemach Tzedek, who was the third Chabad Rabbi. He came and he said, I'd like to divorce my wife. You want to get divorced? Okay. Why? Why do you want to get divorced? Because I want to give charity. I want to give away a lot of money to charity. I feel, I'm feeling very generous. And my wife doesn't have the same feeling as I do. She doesn't have the same generous heart as I do. So it's not a good match. I want to divorce my wife. So the Rebbe told him that a man and a woman that get married, they have a connection. They are the same in a certain way. They have the same way. But there's a difference between the man and the woman. The man is the chachma. The man comes up with the idea. The woman is who brings out the idea, makes it into fruition, and figures out the details of it. You need to present the idea to your wife about giving more tzedakah And if you present it properly, she is going to run with it way beyond what everything you would have done. Because she is able to turn it into something real. She is able to expand it and figure all the details of it, the best way of giving, and all the things that you have to give, all the things you have to work out in order to do something properly. So the male mind is the Chachma mind. The female mind is the Bina mind. There is another example of someone who's lacking that. There was a great professor, a philosopher of ethics. We talk about he was an ethics professor, and one day he was caught doing something that's not ethical. So they came to him. They said, "What's this? You talk about ethics. You preach about ethics. You don't have any ethics yourself." So this ethics professor says, he says, "Well, that professor over there, he's a mathematician. Does that make him a triangle? Just because you're a mathematician doesn't mean you're a triangle. Just because I teach ethics doesn't mean I have ethics. Doesn't mean I'm an ethical person. I'm teaching it. I'm preaching it. It's not connected to me because he didn't have that. It was a separate concept. It was an idea. It was an intellectual idea that he understood and was all beautiful, but it didn't become one with him. He didn't connect with it in that way. That takes exercising. We have to put thought into it. We have to work on it. It's something that we need to invest ourselves into having that. That has to be a little bit of an obsession. You have to obsess over it. As we have with the first example we have, the first example of anything in Judaism is Avraham Avinu, right? Our forefather Abraham. How did Abraham discover God? How did he first connect with God? It says he was a child of 3 years old. As a 3-year-old child, he looked around, and he says, "Where's God?" He looked up at the sky and he says, "Wow, look at the sun. This bright sun is brighter than the whole world. It's giving light to the whole world. It keeps us warm. This must be God." And so we said, we got to pray to the sun. But then what happened? A few hours later, the sun sets. The sun set and the moon comes up. And Abraham says, "Oh, wow. The moon is stronger than the sun. The moon pushed away the sun and the moon came up. Must be that moon is the true God. We have to pray to the moon. The moon is the ultimate God." But then what happened? The next morning, the moon is gone, the sun is back. And he says, "Oh, hold on. Now this doesn't make sense. Who's stronger, the sun or the moon? There's a battle between the sun and the moon. Each one is not able to overpower the other. Each one is able to overpower the other, any way you look at it. It must be that it's not the sun or the moon. It must be there's another power that's above both of them that's controlling the sun and the moon. There must be another power that is controlling and deciding the sun or the moon who is up at which times." And this is where he first discovered God. So it was not through just Chachma, the idea. He then had Bina. He had the understanding. He started thinking about it. He started to connect with. He started to expand upon it. And then there was the dot where he obsessed over it, where it became one. It became connected with him and became his entire identity.
At the age of 3.
Started at the age of 3. Different opinions if it all happened at 3. Some opinions say it took him 37 years till he was 40 years old. So there's different opinions on that.
Okay.
Yeah. But it started at the age of 3. Where it finished depends who you ask. Like in anything with Judaism, right? We never stick to one opinion. Makes it more exciting that way. One final story on the idea of that. There is a story of a homesteader back in we're talking about a couple hundred years ago. In Russia, it was very common. Jews couldn't really own land, but they would lease land from the local parts, from the local how do you say parts? It's the landowners, like they own big areas of land, and they would lease properties, and over there they would have farms and they would have inns and different things they would do. And these Jews were often living in remote areas where there was no Jewish community. So there was such a homesteader. He had a family, he had children, and he wanted to educate his children. He wanted to make sure that they He himself was illiterate. He was not able to read. He had no real connection with his Judaism. He wanted better for his children. He wanted his children to have a proper education. And so what they would do often in those days is they would hire a teacher to come from the big city, to come and live with them for several months of the year and train the children, teach the children. And then, after they made some money, they were to go home to their families and provide for their families. This was a common thing back in those days. And so this homesteader had this teacher that was living by him. And one day a letter arrives from his family. The homesteader receives a letter, but he's illiterate, doesn't know how to read. So he goes to the teacher who's educated and asks the teacher, can you read the letter to me? And so he starts reading the letter. He says, I'm ready to inform you that your dear father has passed away. And as the teacher is reading the letter, the homesteader faints. He faints from the news. His father passed away. It's a big shock to him. He wasn't expecting to know he was sick. And he faints to the floor, and they revive him. He comes up. And then the teacher says, I don't understand. I understood the letter. I was reading the letter. I was one actually reading the letter. I read it, and I'm fine. Nothing happened to me. You didn't even understand the letter. I have to read it to you. And you fainted from it. Why did you faint and not me? What's the answer?
What was wrong with the teacher?
So what was wrong with the teacher? Exactly.
That's the question. What
So
was wrong with the teacher? Something was
He
wrong with
wasn't
him.
connecting with it.
The answer is it's not his father.
Yeah, I know.
It's not my father. It's your father. I don't feel it. To me, it's just I'm reading about a random guy who passed away. It's sad. I feel very sad, but I'm not going to faint. It's not personal. It doesn't connect with me. It's not about me. It's about somebody else. It's a sad story, but I don't feel any emotion towards it. In order to feel real emotion, we have to go through the process of Chachma, Bina, and Dat. We have to build up to it. We have to get there through understanding, through real knowledge, through real connection, and then we feel the emotion. And that's the process for doing our emotions, we're doing our connections with God. This is what the Tanya is telling us. If we want to develop our godly soul, the actions of our godly soul, if we want to develop this idea of serving God properly, there's a process. We follow the Svirot. We start with first coming up with the idea of how great God is. We contemplate that idea. We connect with the idea. It breeds a love and a fear and awe of God, which then brings us to all the other emotions and all the other ways of connecting with God. And that is the message of the third paragraph of Tanya, third chapter of Tanya.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'd like you to remind me, what is the importance of knowing the doubles of these letters?
Okay, so
It's a lot of material.
yeah,
I want to thank you because I've always wanted to study this theologian.
yeah, and we
I
barely
don't know
just
how
touched
people
upon it.
remember it.
We barely just touched it,
I
right?
know.
There's so much. There's so much here. We just wanted to, as we're learning this, want you to understand what we're talking about. So I gave a little bit of information regarding the letters.
No.
Why does he need to mention it? The reason why he's mentioned is because he's explaining the idea of the doubles. Because he's mentioned from the Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah says that it's called the doubles.
Yeah.
But why is it called the doubles? It's called the doubles because it matches up to the 7 letters. And I didn't mention the mothers also match up to letters. The mothers match up to Ayin, Mem, and Shin. Sorry, Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Not so much, Shin.
Ah.
Yeah. So Aleph, Mem, and Shin. These are the mothers. This is basically the first, the middle, and it's not the last, but the second to last letter.
Okay, the top is the other.
Because the toughest in the other groups, therefore it's the second to last, exactly. And if you want to hear more, the other letters that we don't mention,
Yeah.
because there's 22 letters, right?
Yeah.
And we only mentioned when we give 10. The other 12 letters are the 12 connection points between the different spheroids. They connect to each other in 12 different ways. I wasn't even going to go there, but just to keep it more.
Let's call it connectivity. Look at the top, just Chachma Bina Daf, right?
Chachma, Bina, yes.
Circle the first letter of each of those words.
All right.
Oh, I was going to mention, I was going to talk
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. I didn't even get there.
Now write the word that you get. The Rosh Hashanah.
Ah. Chabad.
That's
And
really what it comes from.
And this is what it means. Chabad means to do things not just with feeling, but with understanding. When this parak of Tanya is telling us exactly what it's all about. The Alter Rebbe is telling us that in order to serve God properly, it needs to start with intellect. It has to start in our minds. We have to think about it, contemplate it, connect with it, and then we can feel whatever we're going to feel and do the mitzvah properly with feeling. It has to begin in our minds. It has to begin with Chabad. That's why it's called Chabad.